Welcome to the Teacher Squad podcast, episode 4.
What have we got this week, Jane?
Well, I can't quite believe it's episode 4. I'll tell you what we've got. We have got trainers for teachers. Chuck out those heels. Forget anything else. Get your trainers on. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm going to talk about words and talking. Who have we got on?
Well, we've got Mr. T does history. He's gonna does it. I'll tell you what, he taught me a thing or two. Really important things actually about the curriculum and how we should knock it into shape and shape it up. Yeah,
it's going to be really good, that. And then I'm going to end things with some very serious reading about sanitary towels.
Well, thank you for amplifying the female voice in teaching. There's enough of us in primary. All these blokes telling us what to do. I'm not having it. It's a good job we're here speaking for women. Hey, Heather. Oh, I love working with you.
Shall we get on with it?
Come on, babe. Let's get on with it.
Crikey, Jane, episode 4 already.
I know. I've had 4 kids. I mean, I don't know what's harder. A podcast, I think.
Maybe I should have some more. I've only got one.
Oh,
That's
yeah, get on
me.
with it.
No, too old for that. Too old. How's your week been, Jane?
Well, you know, I've made a promise since under your lovely little gratitude attitude life of like spreading the love, not to moan all the time about driving, but my life this week has been a hell of a lot of driving. But you know, I'm okay. How are you?
Well, I've done quite a bit of driving as well. You realise that Cornwall is, I mean, I am way down at the bottom, nearly at Land's End. So driving anywhere is like a long way.
Tragic.
Gives you a bit of brain space though, doesn't it? Bit of
Yeah.
thinking time.
Yeah, that is good, the old brain space. So, Heather, what have you been grateful for this week?
Well, one of the places that I've driven to, 4.5 hours to get there. Early start on a Saturday morning, but we're still grateful. Me and the mini reading rocker, my number one child, we went to Bath Children's Literature Festival. Oh, it was so good. So good. Really grateful just to be around that buzz of kind of kids inspired by authors and illustrators reading. Managed to give out some of our Reading Rocks badges to some authors. So nice to be spotting them going all across the nation, getting people blethering, as Professor Teresa Kremen would say, about books. So that was really good. Bumped into our children's laureate, managed to say hello to Joseph Coylode.
And did you say you gave him a big up on the podcast? I hope you did.
I did. It didn't
Good.
look like he'd listened yet, but you never know.
What? How very dare he?
Maybe he will now. I did say, read one of your poems. I said, I'm on a quest to make Jane happy. And he did really give me a strange look.
Who is this Jane you speak of? I actually was really, this is not what I'm going to talk about, but I was actually really grateful when you said that I was your podcast wife. I just feel really touched by that. You've given me a mug, a present. You've given me a big up, kind of, you've practically taken me into kind of metaphorical bed with you. I mean, babe.
What's the next step? Podcast children.
God.
Or does that mean we're done?
I don't know. I might break up. I don't know. Thinking about it.
I don't want to break up with you, Jane. Don't go there.
No,
we're still in the honeymoon period. I'm still looking at you with big rosy eyes going, oh, Jane, you're so amazing.
I'm looking at you like that, saying you are just so much better at reading aloud and words and logic and just sorting me out. I just sorting my brain out, my negative brain space.
Although, Jane,
What?
last week I read a bit from Fleur Hitchcock's book, Saw Her at Bath Festival, and she
Oh,
said, "You did some great reading aloud."
I tell
So
you
there we
what,
go.
are you flirting with other people when I'm not around? Because I'm not going to have that.
Oh, you're not a bunny boiler, are you? I think
Oh,
we better move on. What are you
yeah.
grateful for, Jane?
Well, I've got to say, my attitude for gratitude is seriously improving. And what I'm grateful for, is completely different and very uncultured, not as cultured as what you're grateful for. Um, I just want to say it's not my fault for how society views my physical appearance, but I do have a responsibility to defy it consciously. And so I have consciously, and people know I'm on the cusp of this anyway, but I have consciously chosen to wear trainers regularly this week because the most important part of my job is to elicit hard thinking, whether that is from children or adults, right at the heart of it, hard thinking, and I need soft trainers. And you know what? When I'm in Sheffield tomorrow working with a school, I'm going to be wearing trainers. I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to, because if I've got sore feet, then where can my brain be if I'm thinking about my little tootsies or toes? I don't want to be a grumpy teacher. I will be professionally dressed, but I need comfy footwear, and teachers, our jobs are on our feet up and down. Sometimes we need to be at 4-year-old eye level. And I'm sorry, if you're on playground duty, you go to a meeting, you're running here, class 4, class 5, trainers for teachers. Yes, I'm in a suit, but I will be wearing my comfies.
Was that gratitude or a rant,
I
Jane?
don't- See, I always muck this up, don't I? No, it's just when I see my trainers waiting there. You said I've told you before I'm a sado and I lay my clothes out. I've just laid them out and I've just looked at them and gave them a little air kiss because I'm so pleased I'm
Ah.
wearing them.
So
Ah,
2 questions, Jane. What are you delivering in Sheffield tomorrow? And the second question, which is possibly most important, I mean, what kind of trainers are you wearing?
well, okay. I'm delivering the right stuff training in Sheffield. We're going to get under the skin of, what makes us the best teachers of writing really nitty gritty lesson study stuff. And I don't even know what my brand of trainers are. Now, this is going to sound really bad, like I'm a kept woman. I have thought about a professionalism about trainers, and they're not Nike or Adidas. And I don't even know what they're called. Are they called? They begin with a V, and they just look like a smarter trainer. I
I
just can't remember
don't
what they're
know.
called. I'm looking desperately at Mr. C, who's our podcast technician. Mr. C, what the hell are they called?
I'm sure he goes by producer.
Oh,
Don't
producer,
downscale him.
director,
Director,
the
producer,
IC.
trainer purchaser.
They're
This could turn
trained.
into a poem. What are those poems called?
They're kind of like a professional looking trainer. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember. That's it. I feel like I feel like we need to put a link in the podcast. No,
Maybe, maybe. I am all for the flat shoe, Jane. I have two flat
feed
shoes of
you.
choice.
Apparently, feed you.
2 flat shoes of choice, and,
Yes,
after going to see the Barbie film, my summer choice is, I don't know what the right word is, but it's definitely the right choice because Barbie wears them at the end when she's Barbara and grown
that's
up and
so good.
human.
That film and those shoes are so cool. Big
Birkenstocks.
Birkenstocks. Yeah,
Oh, you say it better than me, Birkenstocks. Oh, I
stocks.
like it. And then when it comes to the winter, we're not there yet. I'm still in the sandals. Then I'm in my Blundstone boots.
Oh, babe, look at
Flat,
you.
comfortable, practical. I am a woman in my 40s. There we go.
Yeah, you got to think of these things. Yeah, it's good to have comfy shoes on there, isn't it? It just makes such a difference. It really
Definitely.
does.
Absolutely, and even at 5'1", I don't need those extra inches. I am cool being, small and comfortable.
Oh, that's adorable. That's so cute. So,
On your travels, Jane,
what's
have you
that?
spotted any I said, on your travels,
Yeah.
have you spotted any sentences on toilet doors yet?
Oh, do you know what? I went for a little wee in a school in London, and I didn't have my phone with me, and I was gutted because it was actually really wonderful. What was on that toilet door? It said, How are you feeling? Please come and tell the well-being team of the school. This is our names. Come and find us." And, we just think, oh, I kind of like
That
that.
is really nice, but it's always funny once you put it into a toilet, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, are you alright in there?
I'm feeling relieved. I'll go and have a chat with Greg.
Oh, I really like them though on the back of I think they're a great place because you've got the audience, haven't you? But I
Yeah,
don't know. I did just say I was a woman in my 40s, but I'm feeling slightly immature now.
yeah. But I think should have a podcast link there. Like talking tins that you have in reception. That you should have our podcast on a in a talking tin when you go for a wee. Press the button while you're waiting. Lovely. So, other things on your mind, Heather. What have you been thinking about a lot this week? And can you sum it up in a sentence?
Well, I'm gonna hold my hands up. I can sum it up in a sentence, and it should be on the back of every toilet door in primary school classrooms across the country and the world. But I've stolen my sentence. Is that
Oh,
all right?
yeah, of course. Plagiarism or
But
us.
I'm being open and honest about it. It's not my sentence, but it's a great sentence. So, on one of my longer drives last week, drove up to Saltash to a Kerno English Hub conference, which was great. Thanks for the invite. Always happy to go. And it was all about Get Cornwall Talking. So it was all about Odyssey. And the first speaker of the day was Mark Rowland. And this was the title of his talk. And I thought it was absolutely perfect sentence. So this is it. The language gap is the attainment gap. It's good, isn't it? Good
Really
sentence.
good.
And it just really struck me. And after, as well, last week when you read from the final Matt Goodfellow's Order of Words, and the kind of poignancy of of the kids that we've got with those experiences, just re-highlighted to me that the importance of oracy, of words. The scouse in me wants to say of words. But then that made me think, "Oh, it doesn't matter really, does it? It's not about who you are or where you're from. If you've got those words, if we give our children those words, the language to manipulate, to articulate, we give them the right register and the right tone and knowing what the situation is, they can be anything. They can move things and change things and just be the next generation that we want them to be, no matter where they are in the pecking order. So yeah, kind of just got me thinking again, which was good, about what do we do about oracy in school? Kind of where is it in our thought process, in the pecking order? Is it something we just stick on? Is it something we weave through? Um, how good are we at, you know, building in those oracy moments into our classroom, and shared on the day. So Voice 21 have done a little, well, I don't mean to diminish it, it's not little, a research project establishing and evaluating an oracy centered approach to vocabulary development. So holding it up for those who are watching on the screen. So
Yeah,
it's called
amazing.
It's called Voicing Vocabulary, and we'll put the link in the show note. But it talks about 5 active ingredients for that approach and the impact that they found. So it's really useful reading. It's a small summary document, so it's really manageable for people to have a look at and just consider their approach. I think we should invite Mark to come and talk to us, because what he knows about pupil premium and the heart that he has. Yeah, I would really like for you to have a chat with him, Jane. It
Yeah.
was really at the end of the conference. There were two speakers. Let me see if I've written them down. Yes, so Andrew Willis and George Lumley came over from Jersey.
Mm.
Uh, they've been doing an Odyssey project over there, and right at the end of their talk, they shared this video. They'd done this project, which they'd taken the idea from a Voice 21 project in Birmingham, and it was called Speak Up, Speak Out. So all the schools did their own competitions, and then there was like this kind of ultimate end competition where the pupils were given a speech on something that was really important to them. And you know, when you watch a video, kids, and just, oh, your body's just, you get that tingle, because it's just like, and there were people, you know, with genuine tears, because it was just so inspiring. And hearing, you know, children from different backgrounds, and they had not only the words, but they had a voice, that you could hear them saying what they wanted to talk about, and having all the skills and the tools to be able to do it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
great. I'm glad you've mentioned Odyssey in the Impact magazine. That's part of the Chartered College of Teaching. They've got a big focus on Odyssey this month. So
Okay.
if there's teachers out there who are not a member, that really is worth being a member of the Chartered College for Teaching. And it makes what you're talking about there, Heather. Well, a couple of things spring to mind. Kids getting passionate about things. I'll never forget this one child who I met last term, who was particularly, we had to put things in room 101. Here's the context. Like, what did you want to chuck in room 101? And he wanted to put Krispy Kreme donuts. I'm like, shut up.
No.
What? They're lovely.
Why?
What? And he was really, but the room 101 rules were they had to put things in room 101 that they thought were a rip-off. And
Okay.
he was like, you can get 10 donuts for £1 from Asda. So like, that is a rip-off, you know. Sometimes they're £2.49 for one donut in WH Smith's in a service station. And exact words, I ain't paying that, miss. I'm paying that, miss. And he was like livid about the price, which, you know, they are a rip-off. And then his talk got so animated, by the time it turned into writing, the end of this blog read, because his argument was, well, some of them have faces on, these donuts, and some are just like glazed bagels. And it ended with, "You're just a glazed bagel, do one." You know, it was just like, it was
I
just
like it.
brilliant.
Did
Yeah.
he win? Did it
Yeah.
get to go in?
Yeah. Absolutely.
A clunk, wasn't there like a lever? Does that go in the on the conveyor belts?
Yeah, loved it.
Brilliant.
Oh, no, great. Put in talk, you know, chatter matters, put it right at the heart.
Yes.
And I'm a little bit jealous you were there, Heather, talking about talking. But yeah,
Oh,
sounds
well,
fab.
next time come down to do you know what, there was people, I told the whole room about our podcast. You've got to take the opportunity, haven't you?
Yeah,
And
good
then a
girl.
few people came up to me and were like, "Oh, do you know Jane?"
That's what people say to me. Are you Heather's wife? I said, yes, I am
Let's see
now.
now. Mine was a genuine story, Jane. That genuinely happened.
Oh,
You had like an Uber fan. You're just trying to make me feel nice.
oh, shut up.
I
This
like the sense.
relationship isn't going to go very far if you don't love yourself more, Heather. I'll just don't.
What's your sentence then, Jay? What you've been pondering and
Oh, God.
pontificating on?
I've got so much on my mind. I always find this really hard. I've so many tabs open, and this isn't very punchy, this sentence, so wait for it. Pupils who receive direct instruction demonstrate significantly higher attainment than pupils taught by other approaches. So the upshot there is, if we teach children, I know, if we teach kids stuff, if we actually teach them, it makes a big difference. And I think there's a lot of, talk out there, and I'm not particularly talking about younger kids, like pupil centered instruction, children centered. And yes, we do have to put children at the heart of this teaching and learning exchange. But I think the research is becoming overwhelming. Stockard et al. Has analysed a big meta-analysis. I mean, this is new. 431 bits of analysis to show us that there is overwhelming evidence that direct instruction has a positive effect. And this is with really young kids, reception and year one children. And we're able to show that, whether it's reading or maths or spelling, we can have a really big impact if we give explicit step-by-step guidance and lots of worked examples to mimic. And so for young kids, they said, ultimately we want them to be good at equations and equivalent fractions, but the little ones, if you say we want the same amount of items on this side, either side of an equal sign, and the same number of items on this side, 3 counters, let's say, on this side and 3 counters on this side, rather than, let's kind of catch them being interested in counting. No, actually, I'm going to intervene and make you really good at understanding equals to. This, it starts off, they might understand snap or the same. So you've got to go, right, they understand. It's a bit like thesaurus thinking with language. They understand snap, they understand the same, then introduce the word equals. It's all in that synonym thinking space. But I don't know. Sometimes it just gets on my nerves a bit when people go, oh, look at Finland. And I'm like, all right. But, it's got a very shallow what's that word? I don't know. Phonetically regular. Actually, children in Finland are going to be able to learn language really quickly and easily. And sometimes it can look like they're ahead of children in England. But, it's hard. It's very deep and very difficult to learn English. And there's less consistencies, so it takes longer for learning. But we give kids a real advantage if we teach them. Basically, it's a bit obvious now I've said it out loud.
So it's all right, squad. You're still in a job. Talking about Finland, though, do you think sometimes people just know the tiniest tip of information and go, "Oh, look at Finland," or "Look at China with maths," or "Look at,"
Yeah.
and actually don't really know the depth of what they actually do or the depth of any research. I think sometimes we're so busy as teachers, and there's lots of research all over the shop. We can kind of just seek out the snippets that support what we want it to think, instead of, letting it actually inform our practice or making sure we find out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in terms of the science of learning, that is really gathering now. And we're not saying science has all the answers, and we have to be, we have to take the science into the classroom. But without fail, anything that reduces ambiguity, ensures our communication is absolutely faultless and clear. Anything that's about crystal clear clarity and actually taking children to knowledge and information, in the quickest way possible, rather than stumble trip, you know what I mean? Then
Absolutely.
actually we are going to be the best teachers we can be.
Definitely. I'm interested talking about the pupil premium stuff with Mark Rowland again, and he talked about intervention and outvention.
Ooh.
And actually, sometimes the pupils that need the most direct instruction and not necessarily getting it because they're out doing this, or they're being taken out
Yeah.
for that, or they're being,
Yeah.
supported by a teaching assistant
Yeah.
more than a teacher.
Yeah,
Um,
they're being intervened with, but actually they need to be near to strong, dynamic, whole class teaching. We need them near the very, and actually, it's like I need my Mrs. Gibb near me to make it have meaning for the children who are under her wing at that little sort of teaching and learning exchange. You know, yeah.
it was
Yeah,
deep, that one, Jane.
sorry. I mean, there are lies. I'm doing a Mark Twain. There are lies, damn lies, and statistics, isn't there? But I think I think the research is overwhelming now, and we can't avoid it anymore about you know being direct and clear. So that's what I'm going to do: be direct and clear for the rest of my life.
Is that new? I feel like we should get a T-shirt. Jane is direct and clear.
Full
Obs.
stop.
Well, we got a great guest on today, haven't we, Jane?
Yeah, we have
Yeah. I
Mr.
feel like
T.
well, I was just going to say, I feel like we've got a bit of a pattern emerging. If you're going to be a male guest on our podcast, then you need to be called Mr. T.
Good.
Or
Line
if
up,
that
Mr.
excludes
T's.
anyone.
Bring him out, another Mr. T. Did you prefer the last Mr. T or this Mr. T? Don't know. He ain't getting on no plane. Don't know what Mr. T's are we having today. Exciting. Well, we've got Mr. T here. We're delighted. He's an experienced primary school teacher. He's a history specialist. Thank goodness somebody is. He's a visiting lecturer and he provides CPD all over the country. And guess what, Heather? He is a member of the Historical, if you can say it, Association's primary committee since 2018. Welcome, Mr. T.
Hello, it's lovely to be here. I think kind of the word specialist is always a risky thing to add after something, but hopefully we can stand up to that.
Oh, you will, Mr. T. We're so excited. Actually, history is it's enormous, isn't it? There's so much content, there's so much stuff. And as a primary school teacher, we've all trained in a subject, and most of us can do a couple of them well, and there's always some that we're less good at. So I love a specialist.
Yeah, I can history. I'm pretty content with that. I know my stuff on. If you ask me to teach an art lesson, it's a very different story.
You need episode 1.
Infinitely harder is that I'm not an artist.
Well, we'd like to warm you up with some gentle questions, Mr. T, if that's all right.
Of course.
So we're gonna go for one each. So first of all, I'm going to take you to a popular history program that many children will know. Horrible Histories. And just before I ask you the actual question, I'm just going to tell you my experience of Horrible Histories. So down here in Cornwall, if you haven't been, we have a very, very, very beautiful open air theatre called the Minack. Have you been? Has anyone been? You must go. Anyway, Horrible Histories Company toured there, and my parents, my daughter's grandparents took her to watch Horrible Histories there, and she came back and she was like, yeah, it was great. They said boobica. So that was the historical content that she picked up. So on that note, are you a yay or a nay for Horrible Histories?
Well, as with anything history related, it depends how you want to phrase the question. Am I happy that it's there as a motivational tool for children, as lots of them have developed a joy for the subject from it? Yes, absolutely thrilled to bits. Am I overly happy at its dominant role in the teaching curriculum as a source of evidence? Less so. as it is 100% accurate, as the TV show often claims, but it gives isolated snapshots, and that rounded kind of mundanity of everyday life is the bit that children often go, but that's not how I want it to be. So it kind of skews it. But when we're thinking and teaching and talking about history, actually, you're always going to skew. But to me, it's just it's entertaining. But beyond that, I think it does have uses. It is well researched. It just narratively presents it in a way that I quite like a rebalancing of.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I feel
Yeah.
like we do have a specialist on our hands, Jane.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
like it. I like it. So I feel a bit embarrassed now asking my question.
Blame it on
Right.
me. Blame it on me, Jane.
Yeah. If you're gonna go to the Halloween disco and it is compulsory that you dress up, are you gonna dress up as a historical character, Mr. T? And who would it be?
Am I? No. If I was forcibly made to do it, then
Yes,
Sod
the
I
off.
answer is yes.
if I'm forcibly made to do it, I think I might have just failed a COVID test, or I may have sadly got tonsillitis again. I am giving all my excuses here. Actually, that's the problem.
Yeah.
If I was, forcibly made for the good of humanity to go dressed up as someone, I think I'd go with someone like someone niche. Someone niche. Because my favourite one that I used to do at university was I always used to go as the innocent bystander in a superhero film. So you just wear normal clothes, and every time something happens, you look shocked and pointed, which I quite like. So yeah, I think I'd go for an innocent bystander from the very recent past, which is absolutely a cop out answer, and I'm pretty okay with it.
We've got the
Oh.
measure of him. I like you, Mr. T. Bitter and twisted. You've obviously been a long time in primary education.
You'll fit in around here.
13, 14 years.
Oh dear.
Right,
So,
well, we better move on to some more serious questions, Jane. Actually, Mr. Reading Rocks, my husband Andrew, liked a bit of history, and he's been discovering some great YouTube channels. And there was one, and he said, "Oh, you might like this one because it had on a children's author, Izzy Lawrence, and she was comparing the historical accuracy." Of Pirates of the Caribbean with she's actually a historian as well. So I kind of looked up on her Twitter feed and I love what it said because I thought this made a great question because she says make history is about making the dead come to life, not boring people to death. And I thought that was brilliant. So if we are non-specialists, then how can we bring the history curriculum to life
That's a
apart from
great
using
question.
horrible histories?
That's fair. You can use it in small doses as long as it's placed within the wider realm. First and foremost, and one of my favourite opening gambits when I do lecturing or kind of training sessions is history has the word story in it for a reason. And then the number of people you get like that nod of, oh yeah, if I cover up those two letters, it is the word story. So whenever you think about thinking about planning or teaching or interacting with history as an adult, you've got to think about what narrative am I choosing to tell? Because there's two really important parts to consider. Number one is what am I choosing to tell, but also the opposite of therefore what am I choosing to miss out?
Yeah.
Now, as a profession, we're enthusiasm rich and time poor. So I'm never ever going to blame somebody who looks and goes, well, I didn't know about that, so I haven't put it in. Don't worry about it. Think about it for next time.
Yeah.
The key message is what narrative am I crafting? Because once we start accepting and using this narrative arc idea, it allows us to think about, well, what's the role of a timeline? It's very similar to a story mountain. It allows you to think, why do I need to teach some contextual geography? Because your story needs a setting. And why do we emphasize people so much? Because characters. We really hook on to characters. And if we tap into that very overused phrase from Daniel Willingham of stories being psychologically privileged, I think we've laid a pretty solid foundation.
wow,
So
that's really powerful. Heather and I live and breathe stories. That's our day and night job. And to be honest, it's never been put to me like that before, and that makes not just a lot of meaning on a personal level. I just deeply regret I never knew that when I probably have taught history very badly for many, many years. I mean, it's just the bit. I think a lot of things go wrong with subjects you don't understand when you don't have the big idea of a subject nailed down, because I think when we're busy, we try to zoom in too quickly. And what you've done there for me, Mr. T, is actually put in a concrete, very clear way what the zoom out is. And once you've got
Yeah.
that right, everything else can fall into place. Thank you.
No, you're fine. It's why when in the national curriculum for Key Stage 2 it says through a combination of overviews and depth studies. And the idea of an overview and a depth study are often misunderstood. An overview is not really going to skirt through it. It's developing a kind of broader sense of what was it like to be a person at this stage, because that sets your background. If we're using the more academic language that's feeding through via the Ofsted framework and other publications, that's called the hinterland knowledge, that background. And in history, that background is so key, because it means that when you really dive into something in depth, or zoom in as you called it, it allows that to have a foundational basis. So if we don't have that basis, we can't actually kind of contextualize moments, and we use our current understanding, which is obviously the world today is very different to the world of 30 years ago, never mind 300 or even 3,000.
Yeah. And linked into that, of course, is, when you talk about context. Context is king, isn't it, really, in many ways? We can talk in a very vague way, but what you're talking about there is, context is so critical, and that and the knowledge we learn in that context, well, that links and interlinks to knowledge of other eras and other places, and that context done well is vital.
It's where your history lead has a huge responsibility, don't they, of kind of understanding that. And I think if I was given the job of history lead as a non-history specialist, I would be quite overwhelmed and daunted, and would definitely want a copy of Mr. T Does Primary History to help me out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, looking at it, it was just so clear some of the things that you could put in place to instantly improve your curriculum in terms of progression and continuity and decision making around the order of things. Most importantly, Mr. T, I feel like I've probably done this in the past, but there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to kind of history and history teaching. And is there things here that in terms of kind of busting myths, you think people should be aware of in terms of the teaching of history?
Yes, but we don't have weeks, so I'll just cherry pick a couple of examples. Is probably wise. when we're kind of teaching history, lots of schools at the moment have said we need to teach in chronological order, which is not true. There's no evidence out there that says teaching in chronological order alone helps them understand it better. But we've got to think about kind of logistical sequencing as well. For example, I was working with a school on last Thursday who have two classes. So strangely enough, they can't teach in chronological order. So we were thinking about narratively, how do we craft three different narratives that work independently, but also in conjunction with one another when they'll study them in different sequences. Number two is thinking about how we learn about the past. There are currently, it does make me chuckle, the number of very large technical words out there that we could probably simplify down and not change the meaning, such as a hinterland that I mentioned before. I think right now the biggest kind of myth is the Ofsted model. Is this what Ofsted want to see? Now, I'm quite lucky that I've met several inspectors, spoken to Tim Jenner, who's the HMI for history for Ofsted, And they're absolutely adamant there's no singular way to do it, which means you can still teach a primary school topic model as long as it's carefully considered. That's my big myth that I'd quite like to crack, because people like Emma Turner, whose Simplicitous book series is beautiful, she talks about the fact that our children need to be taught differently because a primary child is different to a secondary child. They don't have the experience and knowledge of the world, which is why we do need to teach contextual background. And the fact that we do it through different subjects, it's not a problem, as long as we consider it and we don't go. I mean, in the book, I really enjoyed putting in the where I went wrong parts, because I didn't want it to be blame anything. It was more, okay, this is what I used to do and this is why it's changed. So when we think back to some of those cross-curricular links, look back and go, no, that was not a thing. But actually that interconnected model is really powerful. And I think it's one that we should be a little bit more precious of, as opposed to some schools that have just got rid of it and now it's all intersects at various points, but not as much as it possibly should.
I think we lose time in the curriculum as well, don't we? That making connections is just really powerful. That's how our brain files everything away, isn't it? What I liked in the book, as well as I did like the where have gone wrong, because then with all the really useful practical advice, you still didn't feel like the idiot reading it. But it was the fact that what you've written just makes sense of a lot of evidence. You can really see how much you know about the subject and your experience, but then how that kind of merges into real practical advice and those samples at the back of, well, this is what it actually looks like. Because I think sometimes we as teachers can see those chunks of research and go, well, yeah, that makes sense, but how do I do it? What does that look like for me? And we're kind of on that train, aren't we, of going, just like you said earlier, Jane, about kind of zooming in. It's because we're just kind of going, okay, done that bit, what am I doing tomorrow? Done that bit, what? And you can't do a history curriculum thinking about one lesson at a time, can you? Yeah, I thought that was really good. One bit that struck me was about the diverse curriculum, and it's October now, which you mentioned about Black History Month, which it's great to mention it then and give it a boost. But if that's the only time to you talk about it, that ain't good enough. That's not right. You use words like meaningful curriculum for your school, and there was something in there about when you were teaching World War One, and then you talked about the fact that India had been part of the empire, and that struck me because I've been interacting this week with another author. Hey, and she talked about the those Indians that were part of the empire and wanted to serve for their country as well. So talk to us about that diverse curriculum. How do we do that? What does it look like?
I think it's the hot topic of the moment, and I look back and think about who I learned about and what I learned about when I was going through school, and I can't say it better than David Olusoga did in one of his BBC documentaries, where he was saying when he did history at high school, he learned all about the cotton mills of Lancashire where he grew up, because locality is important, but he never learned where the cotton came from, which has quite a profound impact when you think it was from the plantations of the Americas. And when we think about diversity, it's not a binary yes or no. To me, it's about thinking about the narratives we're choosing to tell. Is it honest? Is it fair? Is it representative? And although the kind of reframing the narratives towards that decolonization, as in away from European imperialism towards a more broad, including the voice of the oppressed, although some traditionally minded people would look and go, you're rewriting history, but I'm really sorry, but that's how history works. E.H. Carr, who's a historian, he wrote What is History in 1961, and he, every historian expects his work to be superseded. Welcome to history. A couple of really revelatory ones that I found out of the past few years. Beyond that, the role of the Indian Army in the First World War. I think being based in Yorkshire, when I was thinking about the Romans, I'd taught about a Roman emperor called Septimius Severus, who ruled the whole Roman Empire from York around 208 AD, something like that. He was campaigning against the Caledonians. But then I looked up to try and find kind of contemporary images of him, and he was black. And when you think about that kind of model of how that unpicks the narrative, that's a black Roman emperor who was depicted in at the time as having dark skin, ruling this whole empire from York, which is 40 minutes up the road. And it's just that moment of the ancient world was more interconnected than my brain had comprehended.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast called Ancients, which is by History Hit, and they did one on the history of Roman London. And although what I'm about to say is contested, it's not agreed upon, as very rarely anything is in history, there were Chinese people in Roman London, according to analysis of DNA from two skeletons in a graveyard that was found. So when we're thinking about the teaching of history, what we need to think about is, am I depicting it in a stereotypical way, because that's the resources I happen to have access to, or have I contemplated that it's broader and more varied than I may have thought about? And that's something that it's an ongoing conversation that I always have when I think about and put things together. So when there are some units we have to teach, but when we think about others where we've got choice, let's not settle for the ones we've always done, please. Let's broaden the children's horizons and think which is most powerful to them. You can't be what you can't see. The power of the World War I example is one of my favorites, because the power of that child looking and going, that person looks like me. It's a game changer, and it's something that I can see continuing to gain traction, and rightly so.
Yeah,
absolutely. Not, our curriculum should be, like mirrors, like doorways, helping children see the links and joins across the whole world, back in time and in the here and now. There's so much to think about when we curate a curriculum. Mr. T, is there, I know you're up north, but is there anywhere in the UK that you would recommend? It might be a school that you've helped where you are inspired by their curriculum, particularly their history curriculum. Is there any schools you want to shout out about, or can people get in touch with you and kind of work under your consultancy wing to, perhaps rebuild a curriculum or titivate a curriculum for improvement, for diversity and actually narrative arc pathways?
Yes, always happy for people to get in touch, either through Twitter, the Facebook page, or email. Very happy. But I can't think of any schools off the top of my head, but there's certain core features that I've encountered that I've gone, that's genius. And I'll tell you roughly where they were from if I can remember. But the first one, and this was a school in Wigan, where I looked at the model and they had 4 history topics a year, to which I thought, why 4? And then she explained to me that we don't tell teachers how long it has to be, because it's done when it's done. And one of those really common trends is that we arbitrarily say this topic must last a half term.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes you look and go, but I can do it well in 3 weeks, but now I've got 5 weeks left because it's that horrible autumn 8-week half term that we all dread.
Yeah.
And then, the other times you think, I just want a couple of extra weeks. Well, why not? The other thing is, when we think about the history curriculum, and this is a phrase that's been used by a few people, it's the national curriculum is not a curriculum. The national curriculum is a broad set of it's a broad framework from which we construct a curriculum. So a couple of key areas to look in. Purpose of study, to me, one of the most important phrases often missed, inspires pupil curiosity to know more about the past.
I wrote that down. Yeah, I wrote that down from your book. Yeah, it's powerful.
It's a requirement that we need to try and foster that. Now, not all history is inherently interesting to all people. Fine, but actually, let's kind of take them on, into that history's on your doorstep, because they may not realise it helps to explain the story of where we are. And then there was another school in Manchester who had a local curriculum, which is minimum of 1 week in every year group, usually went a bit longer, and it helps to give such a rich understanding of where the children grew up, and therefore it helps them to appreciate why they should care about it. Because if we don't tell those little stories that are just relevant to this little area, they could so easily be lost, but they're no less powerful, they're no less important. And when we think about kind of the nature of the months and the events that we commemorate or mark or celebrate, don't just tell the bad bits. Let's look for stories of inspiration, stories of joy, overcoming difficulty, all of those wonderful things. Like some of my favorite people, I love an inventor called Lewis Latimer. He worked on the telephone, and he worked on, I think it was the incandescent bulb with Thomas Edison. And he's just a brilliant story. And then, think about which areas aren't included in the curriculum. So I've done a bit of work with, I think it was a Bradford school, where they had a large migration over the last 15 years of Polish families. So when they teach the Second World War, they teach about the Polish pilots.
Yeah, wonderful.
And it's just use this broad framework to allow your school to go, this is what we believe in. Because I'm sure most people listening have written that ubiquitous intent, implementation, impact statements, even though nobody said we had to, but we all decided we should. Most of the time in there, you just read and go, oh, okay, you've just spent 1,500 words telling me that you teach national curriculum. Wonderful. I knew that already because I've seen the curriculum plan. But the thing that I always want schools to really reflect on and contemplate is, what do you believe? What makes your school special? What makes it brilliant? What makes it right for your community? And when we think about the power of the curriculum, that's how we can do it. That's why the pupil premium money, if you're spending that on giving them experiences they won't encounter across the curriculum, I just think it's such a powerful vehicle to kind of move on towards broader change.
Well, thank you, Mr. T. I think you have put right at the heart of your discussion there the power of real and relevant bringing to life history that inspires and motivates children to find out more about themselves and others. Really stunning to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we definitely recommend your book, and we will be sharing a link so people can find out about it in the show notes. I think all history leads should grab themselves a copy. Thank you, Mr. T.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me. Lovely to meet you both.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Well, that was good, wasn't it, Jane?
Yeah, really good, really insightful. Love listening to Mr. T. Yeah.
And I do believe we have some copies of the book to give away. So how can people win it?
Yeah. So if they can finish this sentence, my favourite history character is.
Oh, nice one. So people can do that on social media. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear. Just has to be your favourite one, not the one you're going to go dressed up as to the school Halloween disco.
Yeah,
Would you like to
get in
hear
touch.
some winners from last week's book?
Yes.
Ginny Senko book. Funny moment though. Ginny seemed to enter the competition herself. Maybe she needs some extra copies.
Classic.
Well, the sentence was being a Senko is like, so I feel like we should really give Ginny's answer. She put being a Senko is like walking through treacle backwards on one leg.
Oh, she okay, hun? I feel like we need to get back in and give her a cuddle.
Oh, brilliant. Then we've got some winners. Okay, so we're going to go for Instagram first. So Miss E loves to read said, being a Senko is like playing whack-a-mole.
Oh,
Never get those jobs done. So you have won a copy of Ginny's book. And our winner from Twitter is Dr. Jennifer A. Hawkins. And she says, I like this one. I think you like it, Jane. Being a Senko is like doing a balancing act on a high wire while juggling precious artifacts.
Oh, precious
I like,
artifacts. That's cute.
yeah, the precious artifacts got me. I just thought, oh yeah, they are They are, aren't they? They're precious. So get in touch with us, and there will be a copy of the book heading over to you.
Now, before we do Wonder of Words, I just wanted to mention ever so quickly Get Britain Talking, the Young Minds collaboration, because we've got the World Mental Health Day coming up on the 10th of October. And they have assigned homework to all the children around the country about talking. And the homework task is spoken or written, and children have to consider what is on their minds. We know 1 in 5 children are unhappy with their mental health, and the NHS data said 18% of 7 to 16-year-olds are suffering from a mental health disorder, which is when your mental health becomes so persistent or excessive that it needs to be dealt with. And 95% of teachers are currently reporting an increased sense of anxiety from the children in their classes. So, we as teachers, we know this, are the first port of call for children who feel anxious and worried. And I just wanted to make sure that we are all wearing yellow on the 10th of October and getting involved with helping children explore what is on their minds.
Yeah, good shout, Jay. What's your Wonder of Words then?
Well, this is, I love this Wonder of Words. It's from SF Said's book. And I love Tiger, as you love Tiger, as we all love that book, Tiger. But I'm just going to read actually from the book Varjak Paw. And who is Varjak Paw? Well, he is a young cat. He's a Mesopotamian blue breed. And his grandfather, the elder cat, shows him the way of the martial arts, secret martial arts for cats. And this excerpt, well, it's packed out with verbs, and the verbs just kind of pull the action forward, propel it, and give it a spark and a drive and an intent. Just have a listen to how packed out this is with verbs. Varjak exploded into motion, back legs uncoiled, front paws reached out of his grip, found it. Back legs pushed, pumped, powered up, and like the wind, Varjak Paw flew up in the face of the wall, up through the trees, higher than the curtains, higher than the house, up. Beginning to tire, muscles aching, vision blurring. How much further up? Grip after grip, paw after paw, slipping, latched onto a ledge, heaved, and made it to the top of the wall. I mean, packed with verbs, exploded, uncoiled, reached, pushed, pumped, powered, latched. I mean, it's great for teaching regular verbs, ending in ED, irregular verbs, loads. Heather, what's your Wonder of Words?
Well, I think I want to show off because, well, I'm going to be greedy as well, and I'm going to be really quick, so I'm allowed to be greedy because I'm going to do 2. But the first one is definitely a show off because at the Bath Festival, I bumped into Joshua Siegel, who is a poet and who has written a book that went into our most recent Reading Rocks teacher subscription boxes. And he's written an amazing poem about libraries, and I thought I might read it, but then I thought, who better to hear the words from than the poet himself? Now, I'm just going to double check that this works because she says showing off, but it'd be embarrassing if it didn't work, wouldn't it?
My name is Joshua Siegel, and I'm a poet, and this is a poem from my latest book. The book is called Who Let the Words Out, and the poem is called Poem for Libraries. Come to a place full of wonder and light and sparkling stories to brighten your night, of tales and fables and beautiful beams that flash in your mind and set fire to your dreams. Come to a place full of horror and dread, of demons and dragons that howl in your head, of terrible tigers with blood-spattered claws and lives that are shattered by famines and wars. Come to a place full of dates, facts, and figures, and jokes that will have you in stitches and sniggers. A place you can stroll through the meadows of history, scaling the sides of the mountain of mystery. Come to a place that can sate your addiction to rollicking rhymes and to fabulous fiction. A place you can travel through time at your leisure. A library of pages to savour and treasure. Thank you.
How good's that? Out of the mouth of the actual poet. It's always the best when you hear it read, which is where I come to my very quick second one. And I think I mentioned on episode 1 that my daughter really loves Katie Kirby's books, the Lottie Brooks series. And we went to see her, and she was fabulous. And she read a little extract, and it kind of made me think of you, Jane, when we were talking about those mice, those
Yes.
springtails last week. And I thought this might amuse you, because the beauty of words is they can inspire all emotions, can't they? So this is on a school trip, and it's late in the night, and the girls want to stay up 1:45 a.m. Got bored, so we pooled our sanitary towel collection. Between us, we had 74. Spent a long time discussing what to do with them. Ella wanted to construct a 3D model of the Eiffel Tower. Amber and Molly wanted to make slippers, and Mia wanted to set fire to them. In the end, we decided the best and safest thing to do was stick them all to one of us and then send that person out to haunt the camp. The added bonus was that hopefully it might help scare away the ding-dong ditcher too. Then we move to who Lottie gets chosen, and this is just after she's come back, 2:25 a.m. OMG, that was hilarious. You should have heard the screaming. I was knocking on cabin windows, and then when people looked out, I pressed my face right up to the window and sort of growled at them. I felt like a superhero. Yes, okay, a superhero covered in sanitary towels, but a superhero nonetheless. Then I heard a twig crack behind me. Mr. Peters had come out to see what all the noise was. He shouted, "Hey, what's going on over there?" and started walking over towards me. I didn't want to get caught, as I knew I'd be in massive trouble. So I decided to run towards the woods so that I could hide. Unfortunately, the sanitary towels were obscuring my vision, and I ran face first into the tree. Ouch! A good thing was, the extra padding meant that it didn't knock myself out or injure myself too badly. I ducked behind the tree and waited as the time ticked slowly by. It was not lost on me how bonkers my predicament actually was.
Insert diagram. Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, all the uses of a Tampax. I tell you, we can start. I've started to collect them because it's autumnal and we might need them as, fire starters in the wood burner.
I feel like we're coming back to your whoosh moment and you not being, evolving, eco-friendly with the times. We need the reusable stuff, Jane. Come on.
Yeah, moon cups. That's another episode. Thank you for today, Heather. I've loved it.
It's been great. What are you up to this week, Jane?
Oh, I'm on my travels. I am going out and about to Sheffield, but I'll tell you what, I have got a new place I'm going. I'm going to a new venue in Manchester on the 13th of October. If you go to janeconsidine.com, you'll find me there training on the right stuff. And I'm saying new because I've also got a new resource coming out called the Reading Unit Plans. And everyone can download their free sample off the
free samples. How exciting.
I know. So
everybody
exciting.
should head there.
Yeah. And what you got going down, babe?
Well, this week, not travelling so much, which is great. So doing a little bit of behind the scenes work on our pupil premium book service. Right. So if that's sparking interest anyone, you can go to wherereadingrocks.com to find out a bit more. And then I've got 3 virtual author events with some crackers this week. So again, you can go to the website, get your classes to join in. those amazing events, which we know just inspire and engage. So a good week ahead for both of us, I think.
Yeah. And those author events, are they happening in the school timetable day with
Yeah, so
schools? Yep.
they're either 9:30 or 1:30. They're all on our events calendar, and you just, once you've got your subscription, use your credits, pick the ones that you want, and then we just beam those authors right into your classroom. No coach to pay for, no
Yeah.
travel of the author to pay for. It's just right there, ready for you.
Oh, amazing. Love that. Love that.
So if our listeners were inspired by Mr. T, they might want to go to his website, mightn't they, Jane? So it's Mr. T does history.com, or go and find him on Twitter, or X, as you want to say. His handle is at Mr_S_Tiffany. So yeah, go and see what good things he's doing. Shall we say goodbye, Jane?
Yes. It's Heartburst
From Jane and big love.
from Heather. See you next week.
See you next week, everyone.